Welcome back, participants. We're going to start off today with our journal, so go ahead and grab that. We're going to actually start off today by writing and reflecting. What I want you to think about in preparation for our first speaker is who was your champion? When you think about your life, even as a child, as an adolescent, as a teenager, when you were in college, even as an adult, who was your champion? And by that I mean who just fought for you. Another way to say this is who was your advocate? Who just always made you feel like you could do better than you thought you could? Just think for a second on your own life about someone who is like this for you. It's going to lead into our speaker, who is one of my favorite TED Talks of all time, and I think you're going to love her. Because what she does is she brings it back to why we do these things. Why are we taking this instruction? It's because we want to build relationships. We don't want our trauma to impact the way we establish relationships with others, and we don't want any of the trauma and the fear that are in the children's minds that we love and adore to hinder them either. So she really brings it back to why this tool is one that we want to have, why understanding neuroscience and having counseling techniques are desirable. She just brings it all home, and I love it so much. So I hope she inspires you as much as she inspires me, especially after you journal and pause this video just to kind of reflect and think, who was your champion? Who built that relationship with you? Who advocated for you? Who poured their life into you? And I think it'll put us in the right mindset to listen to this first TED Talk on this video. All right, buckle up.
I have spent my entire life either at the schoolhouse, on the way to the schoolhouse, or talking about what happens in the schoolhouse. Both my parents were educators. My maternal grandparents were educators. And for the past 40 years, I've done the same thing. And so needless to say, over those years, I've had a chance to look at education reform from a lot of perspectives. Some of those reforms have been good, some of them have been not so good. And we know why kids drop out. We know why kids don't learn. It's either poverty, low attendance, negative peer influences. We know why. But one of the things that we never discuss, or we rarely discuss, is the value and importance of human connection. Relationships. James Comer says that no significant learning can occur without a significant relationship. George Washington Carver says all learning is understanding relationships. Everyone in this room has been affected by a teacher or an adult. For years, I have watched people teach. I have looked at the best, and I've looked at some of the worst. A colleague said to me one time, they don't pay me to like the kids. They pay me to teach a lesson. The kids should learn it. I should teach it. They should learn it. Case closed. Well, I said to her, you know, kids don't learn from people they don't like. She said, that's just a bunch of hooey. And I said to her, well, your year is going to be long and arduous, dear. Needless to say, it was. Some people think that you can either have it in you to build a relationship or you don't. I think Stephen Covey had the right idea. He said you ought to just throw in a few simple things, like seeking first to understand as opposed to being understood. Simple things like apologizing. You ever thought about that? Tell a kid you're sorry, they're in shock. I I taught a lesson once on ratios. I'm not real good with math, but I was working on it. And I got back and looked at that teacher edition. I taught the whole lesson wrong. So I came back to class the next day and I said, look, guys, I need to apologize. I taught the whole lesson wrong. I'm so sorry. They said, that's okay, Miss Pearson. You were so excited. We just let you go. I have had classes that were so low, so academically deficient that I cried. I wondered, how am I going to take this group in 9 months from where they are to where they need to be? And it was difficult. It was awfully hard. How do I raise the self-esteem of a child and his academic achievement at the same time? One year I came up with a bright idea. I told all my students, you were chosen to be in my class. Because I am the best teacher and you are the best students, they put us all together so we could show everybody else how to do it. One of the students said, really? I said, really? We have to show the other classes how to do it. So when we walk down the hall, people will notice us. So you can't make noise, you just have to strut. And I gave him a saying to say, I am somebody. I was somebody when I came. I'll be a better somebody when I leave. I am powerful and I am strong. I deserve the education that I get here. I have things to do, people to impress, and places to go. And they said, yeah. You say it long enough, it starts to be a part of you. And so, I gave a quiz, 20 questions. Student missed 18. I put a +2 on this paper and a big smiley face. He said, Miss Pearson, is this an F? I said, yes. He said, then why'd you put a smiley face? I said, because you on the roll. You got 2 right, you didn't miss them all. I said, and when we review this, won't you do better? He said, yes, ma'am, I can do better. You see, -18 sucks all the life out of you. +2 said, I ain't all bad. For years, I watched my mother take the time at recess to review, go on home visits in the afternoon, buy combs and brushes and peanut butter and crackers to put in her desk drawer for kids that needed to eat, and a washcloth and some soap for the kids who didn't smell so good. See, it's hard to teach kids who stink. And kids can be cruel. And so she kept those things in her desk, and years later, after she retired, I watched some of those same kids come through and say to her, you know, Miss Walker, you made a difference in my life. You made it work for me. You made me feel like I was somebody when I knew at the bottom I wasn't. And I want you to just see what I've become. And when my mama died 2 years ago at 92, there were so many former students at her funeral. It brought tears to my eyes, not because she was gone, but because she left a legacy of relationships that could never disappear. Can we stand to have more relationships? Absolutely. Will you like all your children? Of course not. And you know your toughest kids are never absent. Never. You won't like them all, and the tough ones show up for a reason. It's the connection, it's the relationships. And while you won't like them all, the key is they can never, ever know it. So teachers become great actors and great actresses, and we come to work when we don't feel like it, and we listen to policy that doesn't make sense, and we teach anyway. We teach anyway because that's what we do. Teaching and learning should bring joy. How powerful would our world be if we had kids who were not afraid to take risks, who were not afraid to think, and who had a champion? Every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists that they become the best that they can possibly be. Is this job tough? You betcha. Oh God, you betcha. But it is not impossible. We can do this. We're educators. We're born to make a difference. Thank you so much.
Oh, if I could just have been friends with Rita Pearson. I know it would have made being a teacher a lot easier to have someone like that to look up to. But watching her and listening to her does make me want to be better. Be a better teacher, be a better advocate, and then just be a better influence in the children around me. So, who will you champion? Journal for a few minutes as Rita has inspired us to think through how to love children best. Go ahead and think through, who are you going to champion? Are you going to champion yourself and give yourself some grace? Are you going to champion a child that's in your classroom? Can you think of one? Are you going to champion a child that's in your home? Just journal for a few minutes. Who will you champion? So at the heart of this entire training is to do exactly that, to be a champion, to be a mentor, to be a better advocate for children, especially children who are experiencing moments of trauma. So this next interview that we're going to watch is with a counselor. This counselor is going to help equip us with some I'm going to call it validity to what I want to teach you next, which is grounding. So I'm going to ask my friend, Miss Brooke Williams, and I'm going to ask her some questions. I'm just going to get her opinion about grounding so that you know when I talk about it, this is not something that I just made up, but this is rooted in counseling techniques. So let's hear from her now. Hey everybody, this is my neighbor and friend Brooke, and I'm going to let her introduce herself and kind of why she would be joining us for this training.
Yeah, my name is Brooke Williams. I am a licensed professional counselor here in South Carolina. I am also a counselor supervisor, licensed here in South Carolina, and a current PhD student for counselor education and supervision.
Yeah, she's got a lot of letters after her name. She's gonna
We're working on
it. Okay, so Brooke, I just wanted to kind of start off by asking you where you first learned these techniques that I'm going to teach my participants, which is called grounding.
Yeah, so grounding is a part of mindfulness. So counselors are generally introduced to the idea of mindfulness and grounding in grad school because it's something that is really well researched as far as the way that we can use it to help our clients in trauma or anxiety or a number of different ways that we can support our clients with those kinds of techniques.
Yeah, so it's been around for a while.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so why do you think it hasn't become like as widespread and known? Like as a teacher, I didn't know about this, and I imagine some of the people doing the study didn't know. Why do you think it isn't as well known?
I think that it's one of those things that feels weird when you first start it.
Yeah.
And so it's simple. It's a simple technique, and a lot of times we dismiss simple tactics because they feel too easy.
Yeah.
And so when a counselor, even with my clients, when I introduce this, they often look at me like I'm crazy, right? Like, what do you mean this is going to help me with my panic attacks or my trauma? Like that feels like a really small solution for a really big problem. And so a lot of times we don't put in the practice, I guess, that we need to be familiar with these techniques because we just don't believe that they're going to work.
Yeah, I had the same reaction.
Yeah.
I initially resisted something that it feels a little new agey. It feels a little like yoga-ish, and it doesn't feel as scientific. So for me, I had to experience it working before I believed that the science behind it was real. So
yeah. And the other thing about that is that it is a practice. So just similar to yoga or meditation and things like that, it's something that doesn't work the first time necessarily.
Yeah.
It doesn't work until you learn how to use it when you're in the moment that you need it.
Okay.
And so you practice it outside of those moments in kind of your everyday life, and then you learn how to kind of recall it when you need
It's
it.
happening. Yeah. Okay.
And so that's hard to kind of manage too, because it's hard to practice something when you feel like I'm fine right now, right? So
yeah. All right. Well, my third question is, describe in your own words what grounding is.
yeah, so it's really interesting because so in my private practice, I work with clients that struggle with panic disorder. And panic disorder is just a subset of anxiety, right? We all know what anxiety is. It's just that feeling of nervousness or stress or worry. And but panic disorder clients are kind of the extreme of that, right? So I get caught somewhere and then I just don't know what to do. And usually panic is future focused. So it's very much, I'm worried about what's about to happen or what is going to happen or what could happen.
Yeah.
And trauma, similarly, is often stuck in the past. So it is, I'm re-experiencing this, or I, experience something, I'm flashing back, or I'm, there's lots of different ways that it can pop up. And so with both of those things, what happens is you're stuck everywhere except for right now. And so what grounding does is it helps us to practice being right here, right now, and we're safe right here and right now. So we can worry about the future, we can worry about the past, but that is not what we're experiencing right now. So what a grounding technique does in theory is it grounds us right now in a place that we are safe and we are okay, right? Rather than worrying about what could happen or what has happened in the past. So it's very present.
Oh, that's so helpful. For me, mine is the past. So I didn't realize that there were things from the past that were continuing to make my mind react to new things in ways that the past had really hurt me. So I just continued to react. For me, it was a little bit of displaced anger.
Yeah.
So I wasn't really angry at what seemed to be making me so angry in that moment. I was angry about things that happened a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop being angry, even though I could see like the chicken nuggets that just spilled and the barbecue sauce that just spilled shouldn't make me this angry. And I kept like trying to do lots of other things to make that anger go away, and I just kept feeling like a failure because I couldn't figure out why I couldn't stop it. And I just would get rages, and it was because I was mad about it.
But when you ground yourself in right now we're talking about chicken nuggets and sauce, right? Like, and in the scheme of things, chicken nuggets and sauce is not a big deal. And so when we can recognize and ground ourselves in right now, then we're not kind of holding all of those things against this present moment.
That's exactly what happened to me. Very interesting. So in your experience as a counselor, have you seen grounding work and be applied in your patient's ability to cope with trauma? Have you seen it work?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I work more with the anxiety side of it, right? But at the same time, these skills are, you can generalize them across the board for so many different things. And the thing that comes to mind for me is I have several patients. We live here in Charleston, right, where there are bridges that people are terrified of.
Yeah.
And so panic disorder, right, can often, for whatever reason, find itself with the struggle over a bridge.
Yeah.
Literally over a bridge. This is not like an image, right?
No,
like this is
the real bridge.
This is true. And so when you teach those techniques, and my clients can ground themselves in like, oh, I'm in a car and traffic is moving and I've done this before, right? And this is a normal process and everything is fine, and just kind of grounding themselves in that moment, then they reduce the panic over the bridge. It takes, I'm simplifying it quite a bit, right?
Yes.
But it takes time and practice in, outside of those situations before we can generalize it to moving over the bridge.
Right.
But at the same time, that's a lot of the work that we do. And so similarly with trauma, I've seen clients that that flashback from PTSD or a number of different childhood experiences, or not even childhood, recent experiences, that have used those very same skills to just bring themselves to the moment, right? And in our in a client experience, it's very much talking about the room that we're in right now, right? It's simple, right? Where are you right now? Are you safe? What feels unsafe in this moment right now? And so then bringing kind of their heart rate down and things like that, because we're noticing what is here.
Yeah, that's really helpful. So do you have any stories that come to mind of clients that have used this and it's really seemed to help them?
Yeah, I mean,
I know you can't say names, you can't, but any stories of things that you've seen?
I feel like the story that I think about the most isn't really a client story, it's my son's story. My son who struggles with, it's not trauma, although his anxiety has kind of caused trauma, if that makes sense. So like he has experienced so much anxiety through his life that he is somewhat traumatized by it, because he's worried about the next panic or the next way that this is going to impact him, and that causes its own panic, if that makes sense.
It does.
But he is 15 and has learned to be really good at these skills, and so you can see it in the moment as soon as he kind of diverts himself from an anxious episode, right? That you can just see his entire body calm. And I've asked him, like, what are you doing right now? And he was like, I was just feeling the floor. I was just feeling the floor with my foot.
And it totally works for him. And he doesn't think it's silly.
No.
Because it works.
It works, and it's something that he's practiced. It used to feel silly, right? Like, it used to be, like, really, okay, I feel my socks. Right? Like, he's 15. So, but through the years, because he's been practicing these skills since he was 6, right? Like, since anxiety really presented itself to him. And so, it's been almost 10 years that he's been practicing these skills, and now it's just part of what he does to center himself. And so, but you can see him tense and relax just in a moment. And so I think that we can, just what you're trying to do, right? If we can teach these skills and normalize them, then they can, make a huge difference across the board for students and for everyone, because these are skills that I think we all can use throughout daily life. There's so many things that make us anxious and make us, that we're trying to heal from. And so, the more people that know these skills, the better off and the healthier we are in our day-to-day.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I'm so thankful that you helped me realize that, like, the anxiety over the future and the dealing with some of the trauma from the past, that this particular skill really kind of hits them both, which makes it so even more universal than I had even thought jumping into this, because I just wanted to deal with stuff in my past. And if this applies even to the future, then more people than even I thought need to know about this.
In counseling, I talk a lot with my clients about the skill of noticing. It's the same thing, right? Like, it's about noticing what is happening around us, noticing how we feel in our bodies, right? We are programmed in our culture, right, in American culture, to just go and do bigger, better, more, faster, right? And so the more we are in touch with that around us, the more anxious we are naturally. And so if we can start to notice the things around us, right, like notice the sunshine and notice the the blades of grass moving outside, and the and the way that we're feeling inside, whether that is emotional feeling or just tension or whatever that is, the more we can notice that, the more we can deal with it. But we're taught so often to just overlook it and just keep going and keep going and keep going, right?
So it feels silly to look at the grass.
Yeah.
It feels silly to feel the floor, when those probably used to be things humans just did all the time.
Right. And those are the things we crave, right?
Yeah.
Because when we're out and we're just experiencing a day that we don't have any expectations, how much better do we feel?
Yeah.
Right? And so I think it all plays a part a similar, it's all part of the similar experience. Just noticing how you feel and what's around you in this moment right now. And that can take us away from some of the other things, wherever our mind kind of takes us.
Yes, the dangerous, that feels dangerous.
Whether it's past or present.
Oh, it's so good. So you mentioned a couple things. Looking at the sun, blade of grass,
Don't look
feeling
at the sun.
ground. Not looking. That's terrible advice. Don't look directly at the sun. That's not
You
one
can
of them.
notice the sun.
Okay. Well, besides those ones, I know there are some very specific, and I'm going to go into more detail about this. But just give me some of your favorite grounding techniques. Like we heard, just like feeling your socks and feeling the floor. Just kind of really quickly so that the participants that I'm about to explain this later don't think I'm making them up. So just like, I know there's a lot, so just give a couple. Some of your favorites.
So there's lots of different breathing exercises
where
you start to notice your breath, but then there's different counting exercises within your breath,
Okay.
right? So like you can breathe in for 3 counts and breathe out for 2, right? So those kinds of things that are so basic but so helpful.
Are you doing anything while you're breathing in and while you're breathing out? You're just noticing your breath.
And counting.
And counting. And it's 3 in, 2 out. Okay.
Or any number of.
Sure.
Because it doesn't really matter. Like the details don't necessarily matter. It's the idea that you're focused on something that isn't the other stuff.
Yeah.
Right? So it's very much right
now I'm breathing
and present.
and
Yes.
focus on how I'm breathing.
Right
Isn't
now,
it
that's
amazing
what I'm
that I'm
doing.
breathing? This air feels so good in my lungs. I'm gonna
Absolutely.
think about only the air for 3 seconds in and just think about how it's filling me up, and then 3 seconds out and just think about how amazing it is that I can breathe and that this breath is providing life to me and I'm safe and I'm breathing, and isn't that a wonderful thing? Okay, cool. So breathing.
You got it.
What's another good one?
I like the 5 senses grounding
I like that one
technique,
too.
which is similar to what my son does, where he, feels his socks and he can feel his clothes on him and different things like that. So it's noticing. It's any number of. I mean, it's the 5 senses.
Yeah.
But
What do
it's
I
like,
see?
Yeah. Tell me 5 things that you see, 4 things that you hear or feel. You can mix them up however you want.
Yeah.
But essentially, it's taking all 5 senses and noticing them right now. So what are the things that I smell? What are the things that I taste? Oh, I just ate this or drank coffee this morning, and that's still.
And still taste the salt from the french fries we just ate.
There you go. There you go. But those kinds of things, and again, it all takes you back to present moment.
Okay. So we have the 5 senses. We have the breathing in and out. Is there any other one you really love?
I feel like those are your foundational techniques.
All right, cool. So I will teach you guys some of these in more detail and a few other ones that I found really interesting. One is pushing against a wall, which as a teacher, I didn't know why it worked, but we were encouraged to let kids do that. For us, we were taught like to get their energy out so they can just like push on a wall or get their anger out. And we didn't know why it worked. We were just taught that that was one of the skills. So that's one, kind of pushing against the wall and really feeling how strong it is and how safe it is. And for some reason that makes your brain, that amygdala.
Sensory.
Yeah, it's something about it. So we'll talk a little bit about that one. Another one was what you were talking about with the sense. Some people really love the way something feels, and something about, it doesn't work so well for me, but the lady right next to me at the conference was like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna do this all the time. Like there's a little bit of what is that, like satin inside my jacket, and she just, anytime she has satin on, it just does something and she gets these tingles and she just feels really safe. And so she'll just feel, and I think like kids that have their loveys and they feel that satin, it's something about it.
Yep. I'm thinking about weighted blankets.
Yes.
Idea.
Yes. That idea of like just feeling really safe. Okay, so we'll talk about more. I'll explain them all, but I wanted Brooke to introduce them so you didn't think I was crazy, because they
They feel uncomfortable.
They feel new agey, but they've been around for forever. You said they are a proven practice.
Yeah, there's a lot of research to support any kind of mindfulness techniques within, over the years. It's very well researched and documented.
It is. Google and some major Fortune 500 companies, is that the right phrase? Some of the fancy people that I don't know, they think that this is really important, and they're training their employees about this like now in 2020, 2021.
and it's becoming more respected, like it should have been all along. I just didn't want my participants to think I was leading them down some uncharted, unproven territory.
Nope.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Brooke. This was great.